All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. We're here with the live stream to explain all the fun stuff that's been going on lately. Already seen a bunch of people are in here. We got 86 people live. If you guys wouldn't mind, just chime in, let us know how the audio is, make sure we're all good there. I think there's a little background music going. It's quiet on my end, but I don't know if it's too loud on your end. So let's sort out all the administrative stuff real quick, and then we'll get into the nuts and bolts of the AMA.
It sounds all right this end. Good evening, everyone,
Yes.
by the way.
Yeah, good evening.
All right, looks like everybody's coming through good. We're a few minutes after. Sorry, we were just getting everything set up. So let's get into it. Obviously, we're doing an AMA to discuss everything that's happened over the last couple weeks. So my plan is to give a little bit of recap of what got us here. Obviously, there's been a lot going on lately. So a little bit of recap of what got us here, because I think some of us have even forgot some of the nuances and details. Exactly where we're at now, what we did, I guess, to kind of pause everything, the actions that we went through to really freeze everything. Our DApp wasn't designed to freeze, so we had to make a lot of changes and everything to just get it frozen up to make sure that we were in a good place and protect investor capital and the protocol in general. The status of what's exactly happening right now, and then what our plan is over the next week, and then also all the stuff for the future. So I'll just try to lay it out for you guys. We got a list of questions before that came through in the chat. So we made a note of all those, and we're going to try to cover them. A lot of them are getting covered just in our base presentation here as I go through and explain things. And then a lot of them we'll cover after. So be patient on those. And then we'll accept a little, of course, Q&A here in the chat for those who maybe didn't get a chance to put their stuff in Telegram. So here are the basic details. And, feel free to leave any commentary you guys would like in the comments as I go. But about, let's see, May 22nd, the Cedus protocol, which is what is and was the main DEX on Sui, they had a hack. They suffered a major exploit involving an integer overflow vulnerability. Basically, their code had a vulnerability in there and allowed the hacker to get about $223 million in assets off of the platform. So obviously that's not good. As a retaliation, or just as a protective measure, what Cedus did is they just froze everything on the platform. No more transactions in or out of the platform. All liquidity was frozen, and their point of doing that was just to make sure there was no other vulnerabilities, and that the hack was stopped there and couldn't go any further. Right. That includes all of our assets on the platform, which this is where we farm. This is where we make the external money. Right. We're not a Ponzi-nomic DApp. We don't use new investor capital to pay our own investors. We've got to make it somewhere. So we utilize these decentralized exchanges to make those funds. Then when we take those profits and put them back on the contract, that's what you guys are claiming. So for them to freeze up a big chunk of our assets that are making the most money and percentage based out of all of our farms, problem for us. Rather than run Ponzi-nomic, we also froze, right? So the Sui validators were able to get together. Basically, the full community rallied around and said, these wallets are bad. We can all agree that this is a hack. Let's not allow these wallets to sell on any other DEXs or do anything else. What that did is that froze about 160 million on those wallets, or that wallet that had those Sui related funds on them. They got away with about $60 million, and Sui had to go out, or Cedus rather, had to go out to the Sui Foundation and get a loan to make up for that. In between that time, when they were negotiating the loan, the validators all get together and said, let's do a vote to push some additional code out that would allow us to recapture that 160 million. And if we get the majority that say yes, then we'll be able to pull those funds back, and those funds won't be a loss, right? During the middle of the time, Cedus came out and basically said, hey, your funds are safe, guys. We're going to figure out a way to either take a loan for the part that we're missing, or we'll get these other funds back. But no matter what, you guys will all be compensated. So we at no point were ever really worried about not getting our funds back. Our issue was always, it's not earning. Our funds are sitting there not earning. Not only that, we can't move them to someplace that is earning. We're completely frozen. And if we are earning, then what money are we going to pay you guys? We could drain the other positions, but that's not a good business decision. So obviously we want this thing to happen or last for a really long time. So making the right choices to be able to get there was the call. So it took us about 3 days to figure out how to freeze our platform. So on 24th, 6 p.m. Eastern, I believe, we froze our DApp. So there was no ability to compound, claim, take stakes off the platform, make new deposits. We didn't want any additional capital coming in. Ponzi-nomic dApps would have said, yeah, give us as much money as possible. We didn't want any of that to happen. The only thing that we left open was the marketplace, and we lowered the fees on the marketplace, right? So people who voluntarily wanted to leave had the availability to do that. Peer-to-peer sales, people who believe in the platform could purchase stuff at a slight discount, get a little bonus, and those folks would pay us. So we left that open because it seemed like the right thing to do rather than just like lock up all capital. It made a lot more sense to give people a little bit of flexibility, because we realized some people, they just want to leave, whatever, for whatever reason. They lost trust in the platform or whatever. Obviously, we got to make money somewhere, so we can't pay you the money that we're not making. But some folks just had bills to pay. Like I get it too. There's a lot of people that are like, well, I'm heavily reliant on Paca to pay my bills. I'm retired and whatever. So this gave them the opportunity to be able to go and sell some stuff. So that's why we left that open. It was just to give people a little bit of flexibility with their capital and buy us a little time, because we, of course, weren't sure whether the Cedus hack was going to be a 3-day thing, a 3-week thing. At some point they were going to get it figured out. But there was no crystal ball on our end that we were going to go, oh yeah, they'll be open in 5 days. So if we work backward from there, this is how much money we're going to need to be able to bridge that gap. There was no answer for that. So it took us, after maybe 36 hours or a day, we're like, hey, we really need to put a plan in place in case this doesn't come back up and it's a bigger issue than we thought. And then it took us, a day and a half or 2 days to come up with a plan and try to figure out how to back everything out and freeze it and all that. It wasn't the easiest process, and it took people on a couple of continents to get that done. So that's what we did. We paused. Everything's been good. And in between the time that Cedus went down and we went down, we were bleeding tens of thousands of dollars per day. We probably lost about 120,000 in losses in between that time that we were paying you folks out, but not earning on the other end. So that was a big part of it. Like, we can't continue, even if you're compounding or whatever, it's creating a future liability that we're not earning for now. So while it might not have been a problem right now, and we could have like, I don't know, bootstrapped it and taken money out of our other positions later on down the road when it was time for this, you guys to go and withdraw your funds because you were going to go do something with them, we wouldn't have those funds because we didn't create them now, right? So hopefully that makes sense. Like, we have to generate the revenue in order to pay you, and even if it's just dashboard money now, you compounding or creating that future liability that's going to expire in 250 days. If we're not earning to create that or to give you those funds in the end, then it's not going to happen, right? That's a good way to crush a platform and kill all your investors, like every other DApp has done. So with external revenue, there's pros and cons. Obviously, the pro is the money's actually coming from somewhere, and it can last forever as long as you can maintain the rates. The con is when the money stops producing or you can't produce enough for the liability, we got to freeze and sort out that issue. So hopefully all of you guys have been very understanding of exactly why this needed to happen, and then we've been going through it, trying to make sure we're doing it in the exact right way. We only have so many options at our fingertips, so we spent countless nights basically pulling all-nighters to make this stuff happen. So hopefully you guys can appreciate that. So what's happening right now? So Cedus is back online, and they have resumed normal operations. Okay, so what they essentially did is they patched up their contracts and put a bunch of fixes in place. So we feel really good about Cedus from that standpoint. It's probably the most secure DEX now, right? Because they actually had the exploit, and they've had a ton of resources going in to try to figure out how to fix it. I guarantee they're not only looking at this, they're looking at other vulnerabilities and a lot of other things, right? So we feel really confident in the fortitude of Cedus as a DEX. So that's good. We now have access to our funds back, right? So we can technically take the money off the platform, move it somewhere else. We have access to our money. The only variable there, of course, is the impermanent loss, which I'll talk about in a second. But the TVL on Cedus, the trading volume in the pools, all these factors mean we don't have the same Cedus as we had a couple weeks ago, right? Like in its current state, people are still a little gun shy from using it and all that. And if there isn't the transaction volume, meaning all these people in here trading and doing different transactions, if that transaction volume doesn't exist, then we don't make as much, right? So our APR is considerably lower than what it needs to be for us to hit our baseline APR liability, and much lower than we need to be out ahead of it, which is what we want and what we were before. So that's where we're sitting right now. What needs to happen is people, as they realize it's fixed, are going to start using it and creating more volume, and those APRs are going to go up, and then we'll be back to normal. So while Cedus came back online, it's not like you just flip a switch and then everything's producing the way it was before. It's unfortunate, but that's not how it works at all. So we're looking at other dexes and all that kind of stuff. So what we're dealing with is a variety of things right now. Sui price, since the hack started, is down more than 20%. We're seeing a little pump over the last couple of days. It hasn't been anything serious, but it's still considerably down. What that kicks to us basically is about a $1.3 million impermanent loss. Now, we haven't realized that loss yet, meaning we haven't cashed out of those positions and moved it. So if the price goes back up into a reasonable range, back into our ranges, then we'll never realize that loss. We'll never cap that loss and take it. That's the ultimate goal, right? We need a little bit of increase in price, get back into the ranges. We continue farming. If the volumes are there, then we go right back to normal. So keep that in mind. Let's see what else. So 20% drop puts us out of range, like I just said, right? Like there's nobody farming at a reasonable APR on just about anything that isn't a crazy meme token that can have that wide range. That's good liability. Is it you, Keith? Can you mute real quick, Keith?
Yeah.
Okay, it was. My bad. Okay, so where was I? So anyway, when you're talking about ranges, like the tighter your range, the more APR you're going to make. But the higher the likelihood is if you go out of range, then you're not earning any money, right? So it's a concentrated liquidity pool farming is trying to find the perfect range that you can stay in for as long as possible and poke out of as little as possible and earn the most APR. So you want it to be as tight as you can, but also not pop out of range, right? So that's the variable here, and that makes it kind of difficult. Let's see. I just want to make sure I get all the bullet points so you guys understand where we're getting, and then we'll start talking about kind of what we're doing and what transitions we're making. So out of range right now. We're not too far out of range. So a nice little SUI pump, like a nice tweet from Elon or something would totally easily put us back in, and then we wouldn't have to cap, even though we'd be down still on some impermanent loss, we'd be in range. So it doesn't matter. Impermanent loss is impermanent, and so is impermanent gain. So until you cap that loss or realize it, like take the money out, then you don't have a loss technically. And until you do the same thing, realize that gain, then you don't have a gain technically. So you want, and that's what you want. You want it to be moving up and down in that range, and just earning fees throughout the position. So we just need to poke back up into range. And even though our dashboard money may be down a little bit, it won't matter, because as long as it's printing and we can cover the liability, then paca goes right back to normal. So that's just about where we're at right now. Let's see. Let's see what else. So there's a big something that we want to make sure we discuss. Now, Cedus has been the biggest DEX on Sui, the biggest, most popular DEX. It's worked the best. We've farmed a handful of DEXs, FlowX, we've done Bluefin, we've done Turbos, we've done a bunch of different stuff. Most of them have been trash for a couple of reasons. Sometimes just the UI and user interface stuff has been challenging, and Cedus was always better, so we went there. But more from a security standpoint, you want the liquidity in those pools to be really high. So if we go in and we see a farm that's farming $1.4 million on FlowX, and we're gonna put a position of 3 to 5 million over there, like it's not a good choice to own the majority of the pool. It doesn't make sense, right? You want to be in these deep liquidity pools. You don't want to risk it. You also don't want to be on smaller ones that don't have the volume, because if the DEX is used less, then the transaction volume isn't there. Therefore, you're not getting the fees. So it's not feasible just to go, oh, just jump over to this DEX. They're doing fine. That's not really how it works at all, unfortunately. So we could move over tons of liquidity, not get the fees, and we'd be vulnerable because we'd be the majority of the pools. Like it doesn't work the way a lot of folks think it works, where you could just get to plug and play and then throw your money in and throw a range that's nice and wide and it can just work, and then we can just pay people out. It's much more dynamic than that, and we're constantly readjusting and moving ranges and managing liquidity, if you will. And so in a second here, we'll talk about the management of liquidity of what we would have done had it not been paused. If we're just seeing like drawdowns, maybe Trump and Elon go to war again and they drag the price down and we see it's coming, so we move to cash, or we do this or that. So there's a lot of options that you can do if you have access to liquidity. In the case of Cedus, we had zero access to liquidity. Price was up here when we paused, and then it's like it went to sleep and then woke up back again and it's down here, and we had no ability to adjust on that 20-25% drop. So that would have been major fees on the way down. We would have seen negative stuff coming, watched the charts, adjusted the positions, had a much bigger range to the downside, been in range most of the time, earned a lot of money on the way down, the way back up. When people are going to war on Twitter, sometimes we'll shift over and we'll put long or short trades on individual assets, like maybe Bitcoin or whatever. So there's other ways we can make money, but when you can't access your money, then you don't get to play at all. So that's part of the issue that we were running into as well. And we can discuss that in a little bit more detail. So let's see. So where are we at? The stuff you guys care about. So what we did to put ourselves in the position to survive, frankly, is we froze the DApp. As you guys know, rewards stopped accumulating. There was no buys, sells, any of that stuff really happening. We had to basically essentially freeze the contracts. So what we're going to end up doing is, in between the time that Cedus froze and we froze, a bunch of rewards were earned. When we froze the DApp, you guys were just seeing zero, so you couldn't claim any of the money, and it looked like maybe you had lost your available. We're going to go repopulate all that. So what we have to do is essentially turn back time on the contract to include all those rewards since your last claim. So the rewards that accumulated, which platform wide, it was like 120,000. We're going to get back to you, so you're going to be able to get those back. We have earned those since. So our other positions that we have out there, obviously we have more positions than just on Cedus. We're farming on a handful of dexes. We have been able to earn that back plus a little extra, but we're going to need that extra because we're actually going to pay you some more for a day before you access the platform. So we froze the DApp, locked everything up, and that allowed us to try to figure out what the heck was going on with Cedus. As we started to get more information, we decided, okay, let's figure out what our long-term plan is, and we're going to start to execute that, right? So what's going to happen is we've made a bunch of changes to the DApp as well. Not a ton, but improvements to the DApp. There is a better pop-up withdrawal restake feature. There is a better the decimal issue should be resolved. It's going to force decimals in whether you like it or not. So you type in, $20, it's going to put the decimal for you, so you don't try to sell something for 20 cents. A handful of other little creature features that we tried to add to make it better. We are also, and feeling pretty good about this, we are also going live with Sui when we relaunch. So the Sui pools are going to be available. We know you guys have been waiting for that for a long time. We were literally about to hit send and push the update the same day we went down, and when Cedus went down, we lost the Oracle, so there was no way to reflect the price. So that was unfortunate. So that towed us back as well. So we're launching on a newer, better server. You'll have some UI issues that will be sorted out, and some upgrades as well. Cedus is going to be available, so people can, or Sui is going to be available, so people can stop asking when Sui. That'll be good. All that stuff is going to happen on Thursday. On Thursday, we're going to turn the contract back on and we're going to allow the rewards to start accumulating, but we're not going to give you access to those until Friday because we need that to go live. And before we push it live for you, we have to do some testing. We got to go click the buttons and make sure it all works. We're not going to push live on a new server with everything, but you will be earning your rewards. So even though you can't claim them until Friday or compound or do whatever you want to do, they're going to start accumulating. So every user is going to get the back rewards that they had in between the Cedus pause and the paca pause. So anything in between there you'll have available. We'll rewind time. And then you'll get the Thursday to Friday rewards. So those will be available for you. Because the DApp was down so long, and we hashed this out in every which way, it only made sense to actually rewind time on the stake days as well. Okay, so if you had a stake that had 10 days left at the time of the pause, it's still going to have 10 days. Technically, it'll have 9 because the Thursday to Friday, that clock will be running. There's a few reasons for that. We were thinking about letting it go. One, a lot of time went by, more than we expected. Cedus said, hey, it's going to take us this long to fix it. It took longer. So as each day pushed out, that puts us kind of in a worse spot. One, we got to protect the DApp and we want it to work well. So if all those stakes for, damn near 2 weeks would be expired and everybody just takes them out at one time and requests to take them out, then while the platform is trying to recover and farm and earn a bunch of fees and get us right back on track, all that money is just coming off the platform. So it's like, it's just not an ideal time. So hopefully this will help people realize, like, okay, we're back and let's not go ham and withdraw everything possible. Let's let the protocol work. If you got to pay bills, do your thing. But a nice little compound claim strategy would be helpful for the DApp. Not totally necessary, but let's be honest. Let's try to get this thing back going and have it be smooth. I know a lot of people are going to make new withdrawals or with new deposits when it happens. So that's available for you too. We promised at the beginning that we would have that 0.37 kind of restake promo going. So it would allow people to move over from the BSC over to one of the other networks. And so we had that running and we still had a day or two left on that, a couple days, I think. So we kind of burned those people that were ready to take it out and move it over there. So we don't want to do that. We're also not going to go crazy. So we're going to give you that time back, right? We're also not going to go crazy like we never do with promos. Every other DApp would have said, oh, we got a big promo going right now and run a 0.5 and just taking on a bunch of capital and then just kick the can down the road to worry about it later. We didn't do that. What we are going to do is just run our normal promo 0.4. We were going to do one when we launched Sui anyway, so this seems like a good time to do it. So 0.4 is going to happen in lieu of the 0.37. So if you've got stakes that are expiring and you want to move chains or whatever, or put on some new capital, that's going to help us. So, the more we can get rolling right now, get everything back up to speed, the better it's going to be. We think before too long, Cedus is going to be right back up to the full volume it was, or it will shift over to like Bluefin and we can balance some of the load in between the couple top dexes and earn enough. So that's kind of where we're at on that front. I want to talk more about what we're in. So hopefully you guys understand that that's what happened. Those are the changes that we made to get where we are. That's when we're relaunching. Now where we're at right now with this impermanent loss. So I'll explain a little bit more about impermanent loss here in a minute. I'll bring up the charts and just kind of show you what it looks like. But right now we're down on a permanent loss, and in order for us to eat that up, the price just needs to go up. So it was up at 420 or whatever when it froze, and it's dipped down since. So the impermanent loss can be made up by a solid pump from Sui. So that's all it would really take. What we're trying not to do, it would be nice in a perfect world if we didn't have to take impermanent loss and we could just shift the ranges right now and earn right now while we're down. But you can't do that because the minute you claim those and rebalance those positions, you have now captured that impermanent loss and you're going to eat whatever loss that is. We think we've done a lot of thinking about this and critical thinking about exactly the best case scenario. We think the price is going to continue to go up this week, and it's going to pop us back in range, and we're going to get to a point where we're not going to have to capture that impermanent loss. So our choice right now is, barring anything super crazy, to wait for a day or two, see where we're getting, see if we can get at least some of those lower tiered positions back in range and earning again. And then we can use that to populate a little upfront war chest, because we know that Cedus is going to ramp over time. So that's kind of where we're sitting on the liquidity front. Everything else has been doing pretty well. And it was doing, I mean, really even Sui was doing quite well for a minute there. It dipped down over time as there was a little bit of FUD from the hack. But then the biggest drawdown, the biggest negative, was old Trump and Elon got into it and kind of wrecked the markets. I mean, really pulled things back pretty heavily. So when they pulled back pretty heavily, you saw a pretty nasty dip in Sui. I mean, Sui went way down. You're seeing that recovery now. Bitcoin's up at 108, 109 almost. And it was down at 101. So you're seeing a pretty good pump out of that. I really think that Sui will follow, and I think we'll be in good shape. So that's where we're at. So our whole last few days has been, what do we do if we have a major impermanent loss? How do we overcome that? At what point do we cap the loss and just worry about the gain of the transaction fees and the farm, and then how long does it take to make up for that? If you've ever done any type of sizable farming, you realize that you can make a call a little bit too early and rearrange that position and take that impermanent loss, only for it to turn around 12 hours later, put you right back in the zone, and you took a loss that was larger than a month's worth of fees. So that can happen pretty easy if you're not messing around. That's why we actively manage our positions a little bit different. It's not a set it and forget it, wait till it pokes out the bottom. We got to kind of be up on current events and what's going on, who's tweeting and all this type of stuff. So we can adjust the positions as they go, right? So that's kind of where we're at. So right now, we are watching the price very closely. We think, based on all the factors we worked out, we think we're going to be in pretty good shape by Thursday, and we're going to turn the contract back on, and then everything's going to go live on the UI side for you guys. Like I said, you will have been earning the whole previous day, so money's coming in. You just not able to click your buttons quite yet. So that's where we're at right now. I'll go a bunch deeper, but I just said a lot of stuff. Let me give the boys just a quick second to talk and any recaps they want to, and then I'll start to dive into more of the specifics, because it's very clear from some of the questions that come in that people have no idea how impermanent loss really happens, what it looks like when a price goes up on a token you're farming, all that kind of stuff. It's clear that people don't have the full picture of how it works, and there was no way I was going to explain that in Telegram. It had to be a visual live stream type of thing. So that was a lot of info. Digest it, ask some questions. I'll let the boys talk for just a quick second while I get this prepped.
Yeah, so I just wanted to I've been taking notes, obviously. One of the latter things you said, when we discuss strategy, we don't give away it's not even a secret. It's just our own little strategy that we as a team have sort of built up with experience, because CLP farming, we've been doing it now as a job, I would say, for 2 years. So I would consider that a lot of experience in crypto. That's like 12 years in TradFi. And one of the things that when Scott mentioned about concentrated liquidity farming, it's not just about, the token price is down 20%, which is kind of true, but also not, because if we weren't locked or paused or frozen with funds, and we weren't running promos, we didn't have our war chest available, when Sui dropped to its late 280s, I think it was 288, 290, whatever, just after the Twitter feud started, we would have deployed probably a significant amount of capital around that $2.80 to $3 mark, which once we saw it bounce off, we would have potentially bought heavy. I'll call heavy 50 to 500 grand. And now we're sitting at the 337-ish mark, whatever it is right now. Obviously, we can claim some of that potential loss back to the upside, because, you know, if you're seeing a, what is it, 10, 15, 16% pump from the buy at the bottom, that what we would consider the bottom, local bottom, we're already 16% up on a huge buy, and we have been known to buy $1 million worth of liquidity ready to farm at really low prices. And when you look at the drawdown on the negative, there's also a lot of upside. We couldn't deploy any capital because we've got to protect all of our funds that's in this thing. We've also got to, you know, adhere to the pause, because, like, you know, it wasn't, how do you say it? It wasn't just a difficult decision to pause. We actually argued a little bit when we should do it, because we wanted to keep it open, but there was no sign of Cetus, and that's where you said there's no crystal ball, Scott. It was a real bad time for us emotionally, even though people say don't get emotional about crypto, but when you've got something like this that we've built together with you as a community, and we have to lose our flawless operation medal through no fault of our own. It wasn't down to us. It was, you know, we all know what happened. It was a huge hack, and we were exposed to it. But the main focus of us was to protect paca at all times. And by protecting paca, that includes every single person that's put $20 in, or 200,000, or even 2 million. It had to be protected. So obviously, one of the main points I wanted to just force on you was, when you fully paused, excuse the dogs in the background, when you fully paused and you can't deploy capital, we're sitting there saying, oh, we'd have bought that. Look at that for an opportunity. So it just proved to us, even though we didn't need it proving, that we're always ready and on the ball to pull the trigger on a really decent buy that we believe to be decent. And so far, we've done very well with that. So I just wanted to add that in, really, and just say, you know, thanks to everyone for being patient. Scott's doing a stellar job at explaining it, better than me and Keith. But it's just interesting to just add another little element of what some of our strategy is when we see a low that we think is a low and a buying opportunity. So
let me follow up on that real quick, because I think that's a really good point. So what would we do? Because this is one of the questions that came up on the thing, so I might as well address it now while we're on the topic. What would we do if SUI price dropped by 20%, whatever? Well, you got tons of options. Right now, we're watching the charts and we're seeing, okay, it's triple topped. What do we think it's going to do? Is it going to break out? We're watching all this stuff, right? So the technical analysis side of it, we're making those decisions on the fly all the time. So when it breaks out, we're constantly thinking, yeah, there's a lot more upside to be had here. Let's shift the positions up. Or we go, no, this run is way overbought, and we're going to need to just keep the ranges where they are, because it's going to dip back down in. Or do we shift? How much liquidity do we have? If we think it's about to stop running, do we reset the positions to where we're only like a few cents in range? That way we get the whole rip down, and that way if it continues up or just hangs in that few cent range for a little while, we're still earning. If it's something bad, do we move to cash? Do we go all cash and just sit for half a day until we see a major dip down and we buy in much lower? If we're just if we think that it's going to rip down quite a ways, what kind of range could we get? So if it's like we could get maybe a 50-cent range, maybe we'll put the top side of our range. So in this case, if it's, say, USDC on the top side, SUI on the bottom side, if we're poking out the top and we think it's going to rip down, maybe we'll set our top side to where we have almost 100% USDC, and then allow it to sell back into SUI and then back up, because we know it's probably not going to dip more than, say, that 50-cent range, which is pretty solid. So there's 100 things you can do when you've got the ability to access your funds, and this is stuff we're doing all the time. Of course, we don't tell every play we do to you guys. This is what we would consider to be our secret sauce, and there's no way to like tell you our strategy, because you know we just have a series of strategies we do depending on the circumstances. We jump on the phone, we talk about it. Hey, I'm moving here. I'm only going to be a couple cents in range because I want to play the full downside. I'm moving all the cash. I'm not liking how this is feeling. I mean, over the elections, we did a bunch of stuff. We put some short and long trades on. We moved to all cash just to be sure that if it went one way and we saw a major dip, then we wouldn't get to the other side. I mean, this is all stuff we're doing when you can manage the liquidity, and we just couldn't manage it. It's like frozen. So it really changed the dynamic there. So the question that what would we do if it wasn't a hack and we saw 20% volatility in SUI? We do that all the time. I don't know if you guys ever watched a SUI chart, but that's pretty common. But that's how we print so much in SUI. Like people want to, people say, you got a lot in SUI or whatever, and the reliance on that. Like that's how the bills are paid, guys. I don't know. You guys are all out there earning pretty solid percentages, and people say, oh, they're unsustainable. No, they are sustainable. You just have to be willing to farm things like SUI with the big volume swings and all that. And you got to be all over it. This is not a set it and forget it. The team just gets to go away and live on a yacht for a couple of weeks and then come back and we're still in range and everybody gets paid. That's not really how it works. We're at this almost 24 hours a day. So there's a myriad of things we would do during a big downturn, and that's actually how we do the funds. Maybe we move to cash, like Lee said. Maybe we run a little promo. You guys know we like to run promos when the markets are down. It's like, perfect. Let's pick up some SUI at this bottom end, or even other stuff, maybe ETH or whatever. But SUI's just percentage-wise the greatest earner for us because of the crazy volume and volatility, and we just have good ranges and kind of good strategies. So that's how it works. I mean, that's literally the secret sauce that everyone wants to figure out. And I've been hesitant always to even tell people what dexes we're on and how much liquidity we had on them. Obviously, this is now very apparent now. But I just think there's so many bad actors in the space and the great lengths they'll go to try to hack and get wallets. So we try to be as transparent as we can, but also we need to make sure that just for security sake, we're a little bit secretive on certain stuff. We don't need everyone out there trying to bring us down. And I also don't need a bunch of copycats out there trying to copy our exact positions and spinning up another protocol that's just like ours or real similar to ours. And everybody moves liquidity over there, then they end up getting rugged. So there's certainly pros and cons to the way we're doing things. This is the way we found that it works. So hopefully that explains a little bit about a little bit of background about what we do during the drawdowns and during the upswings, the big volatility on the SUI side. And then also why we manage the DApp the way we manage it. I mean, there's a specific reason for some of this stuff. I'd love to just share everything like an open source contract, but that's just a terrible way to run a business, in my opinion.
You're right. So that's fine. Right. So I'm just going to go into the UI kind of stuff and what's going to be happening next few days, what did happen. So as Scott said, we never planned to ever need to pause Paca. So there was not a pause button. We had to, on the fly, very quickly pause the contract, pause the UI. This all happened, by the way, while I was actually away working at a surf event. So that was fun. We were up till silly o'clock when I was after I finished work. I actually had my Paca laptop with me where I was working, doing contract stuff there while in between like waves, quite literally. So we had to basically not break the UI, it's the wrong word, but we very much like just stopped it working. So with what's happening now on Thursday and Friday, we need the contracts to go live Thursday. So I've got live data to be able to put back all the things that we changed so everything works for you guys on Friday. This obviously will mean that people will officially be able to see their new times and stuff if they go on the back end and all that kind of stuff. But can't stress enough, if you see that your rewards are starting to populate and on like the back end, if you know how to use it, you still won't be able to claim. We're not opening the claim button until Friday. We're letting your rewards build up. Like I said, the whole reason of unpausing on Thursday is so that I have the best part of nearly 36 hours to rewire everything up. Then we can test that everything's been rewired up. Obviously, I moved everything over to a brand new server, so we haven't been able to do that. SUI, like we said, I was actually online building the SUI DApp and the Oracle when the hack happened. And for the first bit of the hack, I was very much, what's happening here? Why is my DApp not working? Why have I lost SUI price? All this kind of stuff. And then obviously we've seen all the tweets starting to come out. Everyone was saying like there's been a hack on Cetus. Then I'm part of like the SUI like dev community, and then it jumped in there. There's been a hack. So that just had to stop. I was unable to work. I've only got the SUI Oracle back yesterday morning. So I've got to finish that part of it. But like I said, we're very much ready to press the button. So just hold out till Friday, and we'll be good. But just if you see anything happening contract wise and stuff on Thursday and on the DApp, just try not to interact with it, because all you're going to really do is get a really nasty high gas fee for a failed transaction. So I just want to pop that in there.
Yeah, good info. Good info. Yeah, we're doing our best to just make sure we get this fixed, move over to the new server. Everything should work good. Yeah, if you mess around, you're going to get 10 lashes with a wet noodle. So I would say, again, it's not totally necessary, but you guys have all been here. You guys are all constantly in the chat, even though we see some cognitive dissonance about how this stuff actually works. But in the chat, everyone is very much like, hey, let's make sure that we do the right things to keep this DApp going forever. So all that we can ask is you guys do a reasonable compound claim strategy. If you got bills to pay, do your thing. If not, like, just compound, right? We're going to continue building everything in the background, including building up the reserves and all that going again. So, you know, just if you can be responsible about it, if you want to take advantage of the promo, great. Just a nice little mix of that would help. While we can probably weather the storm, I don't know that we need another obstacle right now. We've had a lot of stuff. We had someone I personally know had their wallet hacked in a very sophisticated hack the other day. You guys saw how we were going through that. We had to shut down the marketplace to deal with that. Has to do with either an Indian or Russian hacker team that we're seeing. Bunch of crazy stuff came from that, on stuff that was lodged in the computer and all that. So we found some crazy stuff going on there. We've had a little bit of everything to deal with. So if you guys would give us a break and just do a nice little mix, that sure would help us out. So we have one less thing to think about, because we want the position to be earning right out the gate, and especially with the lower volume. If we can just get those things cooking, we'll be back to normal in no time. We feel really good about it. I really truly think Cedus is going to be back up to a reasonable volume pretty quickly. And I think the SUI price is due for a pump. Like I said, we're seeing real good price action right now in Bitcoin. I think it's going to follow. We'll be back in range. Everything is going to start cooking. And in a couple of weeks, it'll be like nothing ever happened. But yeah, we had to make the call. Like Lee said, we went back and forth about when we should pause the DApp and exactly what should happen. And ultimately, it was just, we can't continue to create liability and bleed funds for too long. Let's hang on as long as we can, and then we got to pause it and turn it off and try to figure out how to reevaluate. We need our funds back from Cedus in order to make this work. So that's a major factor. We did everything the best we could with the most transparency we possibly could, and that's why we're at this point right now where we're having the AMA. It was an extremely difficult decision to pause the DApp because, as you can see, all this FUD is about, right? We've had a perfect uptime window. Paca's never gone down, never had any issues. And so we were pretty happy. And like you said, with that badge, Lee said it, we were pretty stoked about that. So having to physically take ourselves offline, we knew the FUD was going to spread everywhere. Everyone was going to be like, oh, they're down too. You've seen all these other protocols, and I don't even need to mention them, but there's half a dozen on your mind right now that have said, oh, we've got some sort of hack or DDoS attack or whatever their excuse was, and then they just never come back. So, it was tough. We obviously knew this was a real reason, but there's plenty of people that won't even look into the reason. They'll just go, boom, another rug, and now we're going to go make YouTube videos on it and all that stuff. And we were going to have to battle that in addition to battling what we're actually going through. So, not
to mention the illness and the fatigue and stress that we've hidden from everyone. Individually, we've all been down for a week each. And even Scott said to me during mine, I was at the doctor's, he was like, can you just post something in Telegram just to be current and don't miss a day? And I'm not, saying we all need heroes welcomes for posting in Telegram. However, there was some days where I couldn't really even do much. I was texting Scott the one morning at 3 a.m. and he was like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm so ill. I'm like up, I'm downstairs. I can't sleep. I can't stay awake. I don't know what to do. And it was all, I put it down just to pure fatigue and stress because of,
Yeah.
everything. Not just, we even said, oh, crypto, man, why did we ever? But then we wouldn't have met each other. So it's not anything to do with the pause or you guys or anything. I just wanted to point out, just so you know, we did get in the trenches for a little while there. So
Yeah,
puts it into real life perspective.
for sure. Yeah, we've all the stress level's been super high, right? Obviously, we all have our reputations that have been, pretty solid, and this kind of throws a little negative dust on it. All you guys who are strong supporters that are in here, you guys all get it, and you understand how transparent we're trying to be. There's plenty of people that are just looking surface level and then trying to tarnish our reputations. I haven't even dignified any of the videos that have come out about how terrible we are, mostly to try to get people into their dApps that failed way before, they could even make it 90 days. But we don't even dignify that stuff with the response. We have a lot of work to do on our end. And so that's kind of why we stayed away, but it was stressful. And keep in mind, like, it's same as you guys. Like, we haven't made $1 from the protocol during the last couple of weeks, like nothing. Right. So we're working, 20 hours a day for free right now, but we know it's our business and this is how we get back. So just something to balance in your minds. But yeah, anyway, let's see a few more of these questions. I do want to explain a little bit about CLP farming, just so people can kind of understand it, and then we can get into it. Let me see if there's any easy ones before I bring this chart up and try to get into it. Let's see. Give me something easy. The non-Cedus stuff did fairly well during the downtime, so it made back up what we lost, and then in between the time of between now and Thursday, it will make up what we're going to lose between Thursday and Friday. Hopefully by that time we see the SUI price up and back in range, and those can get earning, and then the war chest will look really good. The only variable to that of them not doing as well is the Trump Elon war, which drug prices down. So now that we're seeing them come back, most of that stuff's popped back in range, and we're in pretty good shape. Let's see. Somebody asked about what happens to the money that gets made and how everything goes in marketing and everything. Almost 100% of every dollar over what our liability is just goes back into the war chest. The dev work, we look at what profits we've made on a month-to-month basis, and that's how we get paid out. Dev works just a small percentage over the top. We got to make the liability, which we've been doing the last couple months outside of the Cedus hack, have been fantastic. And so it's never fun when you go down. War chest is looking decent now. We need, though, like I said, we need the Cedus volume or volume on one of the SUI dexes to go back up to normal so we can net out that liability. So that's a factor. But as for where the war chest is, we've basically built it back up. For the most part, we're going to be maybe net ahead just a small bit when we relaunch, but some of that might get chewed up by the lower volume. So we're trying to balance everything out. What we knew,
and we are in testing. Remember, we are testing.
Yeah,
we've got 3, maybe 4 test pools on other dexes with obviously smaller liquidity amounts, but the math is still the same math on the APR, the range that we set. So it doesn't matter if you got $1 million or $5,000 in it. It's still gonna give us the numbers that we need to say, okay, deploy there or don't, as the case may be.
Yeah, and we ultimately knew, when we met Sunday, Monday, or Saturday, Sunday, I guess, of this week, we had a couple calls and talked through everything about exactly when we were going to relaunch. It's a balancing act there. We could say nobody gets anything until we're fully back in range, whatever, and we could have just paused it. But there's a fine line between losing investor confidence and where that does more harm than good, and us getting everything back up to speed. So we do have some other strings we can pull to try to get a little a little bit more funds out of the farms we're in, maybe squeezing the ranges or whatever. So there's other stuff that we can do to try to make up that delta if we don't quite have the volume there. The reason we chose this Thursday, Friday thing was just we're going to need, I think, a little more time to get this SUI price boosted back up and get a few of our things online, because there's obviously a lot we have to do contract wise to get it done. So we built a couple extra day buffer in there, but we didn't think that the community would love us giving an answer today. Here's what's going on, and we'll just be back up when we're back up. It's not really fair to you guys, and so there was just we just had to eventually make a call. When do we think, from just an educated guess of what we're seeing and what we think the volume is going to be and all that, and what our other options were, what do we think we could do, and what day do we think we could launch? That's why we picked Thursday. So it's just ultimately we had to play that balancing act between investor confidence and what we want to build in the future, and then where we're at financially. And we felt like end of the week was solid, and that's what we went with. Let's see. That's a question for further along. Let's see. Okay, I gotta bring the charts up here. So give me just a second. If you guys want to talk for a sec while I bring this up, I want to explain something.
I'll jump in. So people have been saying, why have we reverted the days back to when the pause was? Because obviously some people had stakes that were expiring that would have now expired, that with the revert they're now going to have days back. We thought it was better to go back to when we paused, so you haven't lost any rewards, because we're going to be down. It's going to be 15, I want to say 17 days maybe altogether. That's 17 days that if we'd have let the time continue on the days remaining on the stakes, that you wouldn't have earned. So you'd have had your 250 day stake, but you'd have only actually been earning on 233 of those days, not the full 250 if we'd let it go. By reverting back in time, you're getting every single day's rewards that you should have got without the pause happening. So yes, 17 days has passed, but dashboard wise, you haven't lost a single day of rewards. So that's why we decided to go that way and not just be like, we'll let the time count on. So I just wanted to drop that in.
I also covered that in the beginning. It's also, it was twofold. That one, enough time had passed that it made more sense to actually roll those back. The other thing I answered in the beginning, if you guys were here, if all of those people, all those 2 weeks worth of stakes would have expired, and now all those guys are just like, okay, well, I'm going to take that money out. Even if you're taking that money out to move it to another chain, there's still a process where we have to pull those funds from our pools, from our concentrated liquidity pool positions, meaning I would have to cap the loss if we were to do it in from the SUI pools. We have to pull those funds from our positions and then give them back to you for you to be able to withdraw. And then whether you put them back in or not is your thing. But that's a couple weeks worth of those that would happen all at one time. That's an additional stress on the ecosystem that just doesn't help. So I know it might not be perfect ideal for everyone's scenario, but based on everything, all factors added together, it was just the right call. It was the right call for you guys, frankly, because you still get the full APR out of the position that you had, and then the right call for the protocol, because we need a little bit of time to make sure we're getting all this stuff together. And the last thing we need to deal with is another variable of everyone polling at the same time, even if your choice is to move that over to another chain, because we're pulling it from the position and then putting it back in, and that will take a day and a half or so to get done. It's just more difficult for us to manage. We don't keep a bunch of money on the contracts. One, for security, because we don't want millions of dollars sitting there. It's just more likelihood for someone to try to go get it. So we keep the balances lower if we can. It's just an average based on what's been claimed in the past. And the other thing is, all the money that's sitting on the contracts and the rewards balance for you to claim, guess what it's not doing? Earning anything. So we don't keep money just sitting there waiting for you to claim out, unless it needs to be there. We need those funds earning. So if you think about a total dollar amount that we have on the platform, as much of that total earning block that we have, we take off and put it in the rewards balance. We now have to, with what's left, make up for the money that's missing, that's sitting on the rewards balance for you to claim. So our goal is to try to keep those balances relatively low and allow enough people to claim and compound like they normally do. If that continues to go up, we got to take those those funds out of the positions and put it over to the rewards balance. So it can't be working. So there's a balance for us. And this is how we do it on Web3. So if you've noticed other dApps that aren't, when you go to claim, you just get this arbitrary, it'll be there when it gets there kind of thing. And then eventually it, goes onto a spreadsheet somewhere and then those get sent out. We have the availability for you to claim at any moment, 24 hours a day. When you go to withdraw, we need the time to be able to go, okay, this person wants to withdraw 60K. Let's go make sure that over the next 36 hours before that physically gets pulled, we're going to go take the 60K out of the positions and put it on the contract. We can't magically go, well, they may or may not want to do it. Why don't we just put the 60K on not earning and then have you go, no, I was planning to compound that anyway. Then that wasn't earning what it should have been in the earning bucket. And so hopefully you guys can understand the dynamic there. So this is why we do Web3. This is how we allow you to have access 24 hours a day to a constantly running balance and available balance, but then also have as much earning as possible in our earning block. So you're not, so if you try to go withdraw, then we don't need those funds or not, right? You actually have to physically take the action of saying, yes, I want to withdraw them, to alert us to go, okay, within 36 hours, we got to go remove from the positions and put it in there. So while it's not a perfect system, it's about as good as we could get it. It allows you to allows us to farm as much as possible, which we need to be doing, and allows you to have access to a good portion of your funds in your available balance 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So that's why we do it in that way. Yeah, definitely. For larger withdrawals, I mean, this is perfect, right? So if you're a big user, and we got some big users that have like $80,000, $100,000 stakes, if that is coming due and we can see that that's coming due tomorrow, do we have to preemptively go, okay, let's take out this guy's 100,000 and put it in the rewards balance so we can claim it, and then every other of another 100 users have this money? So now we got $200,000 that's sitting in there waiting to be claimed. What if it just sits there and you guys don't claim it? What if you guys are gone for the week and you don't, you're not available to go restake it or whatever? What if some of you guys are just going into compound it? Like, it makes no sense to have funds there not earning when we could have them in earning. So that's why there's the time process. There's no other way around it. There's no way for us to balance it to where we can make enough money to pay everyone a nice standard rate, but then also have access to that immediately. It just doesn't make sense. Okay, let me see if I can share this real quick. All right, let's see that. I'm going to do this in Canva. So
yeah, I can see.
I'm just going to explain it in this way. So hopefully you guys can see it well enough for this to make sense to you. So this is just a chart. It's actually a SUI chart. And I'm going to use the illustration just to answer some questions, because there's a lot of people that don't understand how this actually works. So let's see. Okay, so one of the questions was, you mentioned SUI's down 20% since the hack, but up 50% in the last 90 days. Does that mean pool value is higher than when we entered? So just to make sure that people understand how concentrated liquidity pool farming works, you don't get the benefit of the upside like you think you do. So if you start your position, let's say your position, I don't know how well this is going to work. Let's see. Let me get okay, let's try this. This is fancy. So if you start your position in here, let's say you have $1 million in SUI, and that SUI, the SUI price doubles in value. So it goes from $2 to $4. If you had $1 million in SUI and it doubled in value, one often thinks, well, we should be up to 2 million in that position. And that is not even remotely the case at all. In fact, if you're lucky, you're going to get 20% of that upside, because what happens is your position, as it works its way up, it sells out of the one asset and into the other. So if you're down here when you start a position, that's best case scenario. You will have as much SUI as is physically possible and almost no USDC in your position. We're going to use the SUI USD pair in this analogy. So USDC is the top side and the SUI is the bottom side. I'll write it here, but you guys understand what I'm saying. So what happens is, in that case where SUI price is just going straight up, your absolute optimum thing would be to buy in really low, barely have any USDC in your position. And then that way, as the price rises, it sells out of your SUI and into USDC. So every tick that it goes up, you're actually losing the momentum of the upside of the token. So by the time you got here, you may have only increased your total LP value by maybe 20% of the total value. But this scenario isn't likely. You're probably going to start more from the middle of the range. So you're only really capturing even less of the upside till you get to the top. So you're selling out from, you got a 50-50 split of USDC to the top side and SUI on the bottom side. And as you sell out, it sells out of your SUI position over into USDC. So when you're in the top, you have all USDC and you're not getting any gains. So just because SUI price is pumping, yes, it's good. We like the volume, but SUI price going straight up isn't actually good for farming. People think, oh, well, the price is doubled, then you guys must be up. SUI price is up 50% in the last couple months. So you guys theoretically must be way higher. Not even remotely true at all. It does help you to go up, but the more important factor is where you were in the range when that pump started and what type of volume happened during that. If the SUI price goes up, but there's very little volume in the middle, you're selling out of that position, but not gaining a ton of fees on the way up. So it's a misnomer to think that the price going up immediately really impacts the LP value only positively, and you get the full value, right? You certainly get some increase in price, right? 15% or whatever, but it's not doubling in price for you if the price is doubled, right? And when you're in terms of farming, same is true on the way down. So first off, another factor is once you get to this top side of your range, you've completely sold out, and every tick that it goes up past that, you're earning $0, right? So what that means is you are capped on gains. The gains, as soon as you get up past that range, if you're not constantly monitoring and actively watching it, which we do, and we shift our ranges a little bit, then you're earning nothing as it goes up. On the downside, same thing here, right? So if it's selling to the downside, in the beginning, it's better because you're not taking the full loss of the token because you don't have the token yet, right? You got a bunch of USDC. So as the USDC is selling out, you're gaining the SUI back. And as that continues to drop, you're selling your position all the way back into SUI. And as the price continues to drop, your impermanent loss becomes more and more and more severe. Now, when it comes out of the bottom side, not like the top side, you're capped on gains. The bottom side, your loss is unlimited. So every tick that it goes down, you're not out of range, so you're not earning anymore. You own the asset, not the stable. So every cent that it goes down is a complete loss, complete impermanent loss, right? So that when people think, oh, the price has gone up a ton, you guys must be killing it. I want volume. I want a sideways volume and working its way up. That's way better than if you just see an increase in price. So when people equate the price increase to how we might be doing, it certainly helps. And I'd rather have it grind higher than shoot up and have big, massive up days, because all we're doing is just reevaluating the price. So in terms of, I don't know if I have an eraser here. I might just be able to go. I remove my SUI drawing. In terms of what we do, just in farming across the board, it just really kind of depends on what the chart's been doing. What's SUI been doing? Do we think it's been on a massive pump? Is it about to tank? What's happening when we're right here? If we feel like we want to take a full advantage of the downside, we may rearrange everything here. So let's say our ranges were different and this is the top side before SUI crashed, before the pause. If we had the availability to go, okay, we're seeing some downside, or they're tweeting or whatever, what we would do is we would come back in and we'd set a position to where we were almost fully on the USDC side, and had very little on the SUI side. And then that way, when it sold down, we'd have the ability to eat up this full range to the downside, and we would have been basically in range almost the entire time, besides this poke out right here. And now we're working our way back up. So that would be like an ideal scenario of what we do if we saw it topping out, or if we started getting weird geopolitical news or whatever. We would arrange our positions to where we could eat up the downside, not have to take any impermanent loss, and then let it work its way back up. So, I mean, this would be an ideal range. Obviously, it's pretty wide, but there's a variety of factors. So I just want to make sure people understand, like, when you're CLP farming, it's constant movements of the range, and what's the chart showing, and what's happening geopolitically, and what's happening with the capital inflows and out. Are they all leaving SUI and over to Ethereum? Kind of what's been happening lately. A lot of money's been pouring into ETH. So all that stuff is a factor, and you don't just get all the upside of a token going up. It doesn't work like that. There's a bunch of different ways to play it, and what we do is we get together and hash it out, and then we give our best educated guess. And that's pretty much the secret sauce there. So if you want to know how to do it, stare at the charts 24 hours a day, and that's how you'll be able to manage positions like this.
Yeah, and that is like the perfect scenario, the sidewards with loads of volume. But when it came to the Twitter feud, and I know I've referred to it already, and we have 3 times, but the way that was going, we literally sat there saying, oh, I wish we could move to cash right now, because we knew that's serious potential for a buying opportunity all the way down to whatever it could have gone, because it wasn't stopping. You could not only feel it in your gut, but you could see the charts responding across the crypto markets, and it was relentless for them the few hours during our evening into our morning. And that would have been the perfect opportunity to buy back in, convert a serious amount of liquidity back to cash, and just buy back in when, for instance, Trump says, I'm not selling my Tesla anymore. Hope you're all okay, Elon, or whatever he said tonight. You know, that was kind of the reversal of the feud. And it's a good example for you who are looking to start CLP farming, which, you know, we encourage people to do. You know, yes, it's better for us to have everyone's liquidity, but we are human beings who like to help people who want to try it as well. So these news events, like Scott said, the geopolitical events, you know, the stuff that's happening over in Ukraine, or, you know, whatever it be, it doesn't take much to move the markets these days. And it's a really cool, on Scott's graphic there, pointing out the selling out of one into another asset. I don't think people actually realise that's happening, because you're providing liquidity. You're giving the exchanges 2 tokens for people to use. Because obviously, I know a lot of people know this, but some people might not. When you go on holiday, I mean, not so much now with cash, but there's an exchange rate from British pounds into US dollars. I need to sell my GBP into USD. So where's that come from? Someone has to provide those 2 assets for Americans coming over here to buy our pound, and me going to buy the dollar. Someone has to provide that liquidity, and it's exactly the same in crypto. We have to do the same thing. So, for instance, Cetus, PancakeSwap, for you to swap BNB into Binance Bitcoin, for instance, that has to come from somewhere. It's not just printed out of thin air. Someone has to give it to PancakeSwap or whoever to swap the 2, which is why when we say swap out of one token into another, that's where Scott was showing you all the way to the top is cool because you stay in range. But sometimes going out of range at the top is a pain in the backside, because you've either got to wait for it to dump, but if it's on a rocket mission, you've got to then start adjusting, and what have you got to do? You've got to provide more SUI, because that's the token that's more popular. So people want more SUI. And it's a difficult balance, and I think Scott explains it so much better, but it's interesting, but it's also can be a pain in the backside. And obviously, again, during that freeze, pause, whatever you want to call it, And people are asking about bear market. So this is the same kind of thing. We're probably not going to see a bear market like we've experienced in the last few years anyway, in our opinion. However, we started testing farming in a bear market, and there's still money to be made, because it's not just one red candle to the downside. There's downward momentum, but we can adjust. We can buy local bottoms, sell local tops, and readjust our strategies. Potentially in the future, who knows what kind of bear market we're going to get, but we're not in one at the moment. So as it stands, our plans and strategies are based on the market that we're in. Timing the market, not timing the market. It's an old adage in crypto that works perfectly for CLP farming, or CLP, concentrated liquidity provision. So we're not thinking about that at the moment. We're thinking about where we are, what we're doing, how we do it, and how to keep improving, because every day is a school day. We learn all the time. So
yeah, I'll recap that. So concentrated liquidity pool, if you guys don't know how we're earning the money, is we are providing the liquidity to the DEX. So the DEX doesn't want to have to come up with all that money for every single trade. They will pay you a percentage of the fees if you give them the money to do it for you, right? So if Keith and Lee are on two opposite ends of the transaction and they're making a trade back and forth, they don't necessarily have to be there at the right exact second to be able to make a trade back and forth to each other. What the DEX does is it provides the liquidity for the trade, right? He's getting out of his asset, Lee's getting his asset, and they walk away. For that to happen instantaneously, there needs to be a big old bucket of money down the middle. What CLP providers, farmers do is they're providing the liquidity down the middle. Now, if you take your $1 million and you spread it out the full range between the lowest price possible and the highest price possible, then it's really sparse down the middle. And so if there's a range, the price that it's actually at, and it's bouncing in back and forth in that price, very little of the liquidity that you provided from the top to the bottom is actually getting accessed. So you're not getting very much fees. So what you want to do is you want to pick the range you think it's going to be in and provide all your liquidity into this little block and that block range. So as the price is going up and down in that range, a lot of your liquidity is being accessed, and that's where you get more fees. So the trick is to find the balance between as tight a range as you can possibly get. So all your money's blocked up in the tiniest little block and gets accessed as much as possible to earn the most fees, but to not be too tight of a little range to where it keeps popping out and you're earning absolutely nothing. So that's what concentrated liquidity pool farming is. We're providing liquidity in the smallest block we possibly can to get as much percentage of those transaction fees possible to happen on the DEX. So it's a constant moving of liquidity, rearranging, blocking things together. Like that's how we earn the money. Like it drives me insane when people have literally told me, you can't get those APRs on SUI or on Cedus. You can't do it. I'm literally doing it right now as you're trying to tell me it's impossible. So that stuff frustrates me. I think it's just a lot of people who say it can't be done. But we've been doing it for this long. It just takes a lot of work, and I think most people think it's just going to be set it, forget it, or they don't really do any research on how CLP farms really work or whatever. And then that's how it goes. But anyway, don't want to go too deep down that rabbit hole. But hopefully that gives you some clarity on what we're doing. We don't get all the benefits of the upside. We don't have to take the full loss of the downside while we're in range. After we get out of range, then it's all downside for us. So when you pause a DApp and freeze liquidity when the price is up here and then turn it on and say, whoopsie, now it's down 20%, that's 100% loss for us. There's not a single fee that we earned in between. We couldn't make adjustments. We couldn't do anything. So Cedus screwed us pretty hard. This is our solution to fix it. We realize it's DeFi. So it's like, we're not going to just be mad and write a strongly worded letter to Cedus. This is how it works. But I think people also need to realize that there is risk in every investment. If you want a no risk investment, you're going to want to go buy US Treasuries, and that risk investment, that APR that you're going to receive is lower than inflation. So you're losing money. That's the most secure thing you can possibly do. US Treasuries, you'll lose money, inflation adjusted. If you want to make really good money like we make over here, you have to farm on DEXs. So that's how we generate the funds. And so that's how we're going to continue to generate the funds. It's literally how it works. That's the secret sauce. Everyone accepts the risk when they put the money on the platform. We have a little checkbox that says, I understand the risks. These are the third-party risks that we have to do. We can't just rub our fingers together and generate money out of thin air. This stuff happens through the dexes, right? So one of the questions too was, are you farming on centralized exchanges? And the answer is hell no. If the least amount of money you can possibly keep on centralized exchanges, that's what you should do. You do not want to get caught on centralized exchanges. They're not your funds, so we don't keep anything on centralized exchanges outside of what we really need to. Everything's run on dexes. We don't use tiny dexes, and that's, there's too much risk there, ironically, but that's how it is. We don't deal with any tiny dexes with low liquidity pools and all that and low resources. If this had happened, if we had been farming on one of these smaller dexes, even if we were getting good APRs, if this had happened to a smaller dex, they would not have probably had the resources in the pool to be able to get those funds back and all that, and we would have been lost. So we try to do it in the safest, best way possible, farm in the best ways possible. There's always going to be this inherent third-party risk, but you saw what happened. There was a 2-week downtime for them to recover like $223 million, right? Part of it through a loan, the rest of it through all the people banding together and making a semi-centralized, really more of a democratic vote on how to get those funds back. But that's not possible if you're farming on the small stuff. So I hope people realize, like, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. And if it was more accessible, everyone would be doing it. And if there was zero risk, then everyone would be doing it, right? Like there has to be a relative element of risk in order to get the payout of the reward. And this is what happens. We're in DeFi. You're making more money than you possibly could in any TradFi investment, and people will still find a way to complain about that. This is how it goes, man. We deal with it the absolute best way we can, and within just a couple of weeks, we basically bounced back, and we're going to be running full steam again here soon. So I think that's just about as good as you can get personally, but I'll let the community make that ultimate decision. Let's see. Let me address some of these comments in the chat. I know I've been rattling on for a long time. We got a few more questions. You guys can also throw a few questions out here in the chat. I know there's been a couple hundred comments, and so I'll sift through them to find some. I want to make sure you guys feel like your questions get answered. But the main point, the entire main point of having this AMA is there was no way I was going to be able to explain to everybody in the chat how this works. It needs charts and descriptions and all that. So we needed to be able to get on here and voice this out so you guys can understand what happened, what we had to do to fix it. What's the current scenario right now? What are we looking at in impermanent loss? How does impermanent loss work? Are we going to cap it? Are we not going to cap it? Where are we at in the range? Where do we need to be for everything to cook? Cedus is about a third of the volume that it needs. So we need that to pick up, to basically triple from where it's at for us to put us in a really good position. I just wanted everyone to understand really what goes onto this, because there was plenty of comments in the chat that made it seem like, isn't this easy? Don't you guys just click this thing on and then we're just back to normal? It's fairly complex. It's both complex on what we do to manage liquidity, and then it's complex on Keith's side. Like how do we back this into not only the DApp that we had before and how it was running, but during this downtime, could we make a few improvements, push it to a new server, launch SUI, make all this stuff better? So that's what we've been working on, and our hope is that everyone can appreciate that. Answering some questions. Sorry, guys. Somebody talk. Keith, you're up.
Okay, right, cool. Somebody has asked about what time on Friday we're going to unpause. We're not giving a time on Friday because there is, with what we said about turning back time and doing it. If you think how many people in Paca, how many stakes everyone has, each individual stake has to be turned back. Because we're Web3, each individual stake has to be turned back on the blockchain, and we can only turn back so many per block. We have got BSC, we've got Base, we've got Sonic, all to do. So we don't want to say, oh, we will be live at on Friday, and then the blocks chain is still ticking those stakes. So we want everybody's stakes to be live. We've estimated that it will be done from like tests that we've done this week, that it will be done some point late Thursday into Friday, but then obviously we've got to check that everything has actually happened like it should, and everyone's stakes are there where they should be, and all that kind of stuff. So we will give a time obviously later on in the week, but until we start rolling back time and we can have an idea of how long it's going to physically take to roll back each individual stake, we can't give an exact time yet, but it will be on Friday at some point, and by Friday, Thursday night, Friday, you will know by then, but we're not giving an exact time right now.
Good news is it's Friday. That's it.
It's Friday, yeah.
Friday this week, by the way, just in case anybody thinks, there's 30 Fridays left.
Friday this week, this Thursday, your rewards are going to start populating. So, if you're wondering when you're going to start earning money again, that answer is Thursday. And, we've got to go through and have the system rebuild the stakes and all that. So it takes a little while to go do that. But you're going to be repopulating Thursday. Sometime Friday, you'll see both the Thursday to Friday accumulation in addition to what we had pre-pause. So if you had a nice little bag built up because you hadn't claimed, that's still going to be there for you. Again, it's the right thing to do, but also it's a lot more than any other DApp would have given you. So we're trying to do this as smooth as possible to not burn you guys too much, not put the protocol at risk. It's all a nice little blend of everything, trying to get going. There's a question if, what happens if everything's not back to normal on Thursday. We feel pretty good about the choices that we're making, and we'll pivot and we'll deal with that as we get closer. It may require some tighter ranges or whatnot, but we'll figure that out as we go. We think we're going to be in a pretty good position. We're seeing some nice green on SUI. Like I said, Bitcoin's almost up to 110. So this is the type of positive price action we're seeing. Everyone's over the Trump and Elon fight. And I think for the most part, things are looking pretty good. So anyway, we're not super concerned about that. We had long talks about exactly what needed to happen and what day it needed to happen. And our best choice was what we chose, Thursday. There's a question about, and I've answered this before, but there's a question about moving the DApp long-term to variable rates of what's earning. And it's not like we couldn't do that, but it's a completely different DApp with completely different contracts and everything. You'd have to design a DApp that would pay in the rears. So we'd look at, the previous couple days before, or we'd look at maybe the previous week and pay a week in the rears or whatever and look at percentages. It's not that that's totally impossible. It's just not the way paca works right now. So in the future, could we decide that we're, maybe during the bear market or whatever, we're going to go, we don't know how much we're going to earn during this period. We could. There's also a variable, like what happens for you investors if we were ever to have a down week in a bear market. Like, do we take those gains back from you, or do we not pay you that week and then take it out of the next week's profits? There's a bunch of variables there. It's not like it's something we could never do, but it's not the DApp we created. The DApp we created was based on basically months of averages and what we thought we could pay, and we've been able to do that. So it's been going really well. There is going to be a point at some point in the future, whether it's 18 months or 2 years or 3 years from now, where we're moving into a zone where the rates that we have right now, the 0.33 to 0.4 range, isn't sustainable because we're going into a bear or whatever. But we got to get closer to that to figure out exactly what that is. We can reduce rates. We can just call it quits, pay everybody out and say, hey, just, claim out your funds and we'll come back in the bull, or, whatever. We have choices that we'll do there, but it's like I don't think it's a conversation for today. It's like we've got plenty on our plate right now. We don't need to redesign the new DApp yet. Not to say that may be a possibility. Lee's got some really cool bear market ideas that he's been pushing to develop. So all that stuff will come out. But for right now, we're dedicated to continuing to grow the platform at a nice sustainable rate. We've never tried to go crazy with this thing with crazy marketing. It's all grown at a nice sustainable rate for us. And we're just trying to do it to where we can meet the liability and continue to grow this thing. So that's our goal right now. There will be a time where we feel like we got free time on our hands to design what the next stage is, which is it's not today. It's not this week for sure.
Yeah, no, on that, obviously, everyone knows that I'm a marketplace maxi. It's where I spend most of my time. If I'm not in the chat, it's because I'm lurking in the marketplace waiting. But one of our other strategies, which we've actually posted in the chat, it's for us as investors in Paca as well. Remember, we are active investors in this platform with quite a lot of money. And we lowered the marketplace. I don't like calling it sales tax. It's the fee that we take for you to utilize the marketplace peer to peer, and you can cash out with a small. I wouldn't even call it a loss because it's a false narrative. People were questioning, what's it all about? And if you think about it, if you've been in Paca for a certain amount of time, and you sell some of your compounded stakes, you're in 100% profit. There's no tax. You're 100% profit. You've actually earned more than what you think you've earned, and it's cash to your wallet. And obviously, as a team, we do actively buy people's stakes, because for us, not just earning money, we also lower liability by doing it. It's one of our other little things that we said in chat at the start for the marketplace. It's a place for us to take your stakes, buy them from you, you get the cash, and we lower our liability. So in the future, you're not withdrawing that stake, you're not earning any interest on it. So Paca becomes more healthy by virtue of the fact, we're not talking 100 grand stakes here. If we see, like the other day, I took $700 worth off the market, and it's just in a wallet that's never going to claim, and those stakes will disappear into oblivion. It's not a lot of money, but it's just another little cheeky strategy that we use to keep Paca as sustainable as it always will be. And I think we've shown how we can respond to a pretty horrific 2-week period, well, over 2-week period. And there's all these little things, and obviously with the support of the community, like Scott said, we're not saying don't claim, only compound. We would never ever do that. And it's a reiteration that our community stands by us, and we're super proud. And I'm proud of our admins for looking after the chat, and obviously Keith and Scott for, well, I suppose it's been a support network more than anything else in the last few weeks. And I feel proud that we've done what we've done and how we've done it. I think it does deserve credit. Don't mind saying it.
Yeah, I think we've done pretty well. Hopefully you guys agree. Just a quick little flash on a couple things. Crypto Pride, yeah, thanks for joining, man. Anybody who got those stakes that were going to go in Sui when we were about to go live before everything shut down, Keith's got that information, so we'll kick all that over. Al Sui's got, it's going to now have some utility, so we'll have that available in the vaults. In addition to that, our boy Richie is going to launch his Sui Dex, so that's going to be available. We're going to have Al Sui options on there. So Al Sui all of a sudden is going to start to have a bunch of different utilities and stuff, which will be super bullish for the price there. So we've got that going on. That's positive. What else? Yeah, we'll try to get everything back to normal. Obviously, you guys know we're juggling a lot. So we'll try to make sure that anything was on there that isn't missed. If for some reason we miss something, throw it in the chat. Throw it as a question to the admins, in case your question sounds a little fuddy, but you're not intending it to be, and then we'll just get it addressed. So just realize that the workload's obviously there. We're not making any excuses, but if there's something that we haven't thought of because we're working on other things, just throw it in there. We'll get it resolved. We've never not met an obligation, so we're definitely not going to start now, even with everything going on right now. Let's see. Any other questions? I answered a lot of people's questions that were bullet pointed just in passing in the thing. So I just want to make sure I don't feel like anything really got missed.
I'm just going through a few now, just to see if we
Yeah,
have.
there's one that was one that was
Most of
in
them you
regard.
did.
There was one that was in regard to other real world alternative methods of earning besides CLPs, real estate, doing this, that. I don't think we'll ever, it doesn't, yeah. So I don't think we'll ever do anything for you guys that's real world. So customer facing to you guys that's real world. Only because as we went through with Futopian, it's very troublesome to off and on ramp on that type of basis. Even some of our users, some of our big users who are fantastic and have helped us with a lot of stuff on the paca side and are really well versed in crypto and all that, totally normal people on the up and up, have had their on and off ramps shut down due to just like too much activity, like suspicious activity, even though they've explained here's how everything works. So for us to start up say a real estate piece of it or whatever, where we took some of those profits and gave back to you, even if they were the rates we were actually getting in the real world, it's way too risky for us to now they say, oh, well, we shut this down, you're not able to do that, or these funds are locked or anything like that, then we wouldn't be able to pay you back. I just don't think we're going to go down that road again. That's not how we designed it. Although in a perfect world, yeah, easy. Absolutely. Of course we would. We'd do some in real world stuff. We'd tie it together. Maybe in a year when this administration's gone better and it's just way easier to on-ramp money and off-ramp money, but we're still having problems right now with dexes being shut down in certain countries. You've got to have VPNs for certain stuff. I mean, until this gets a little more mainstream and it's not as big of a deal, if we can prove where the money's going to and from, then we're not going to take the risk to do that. Other stuff like ICO investing, trading, all that. We do a little bit of trading when we see stuff super overbought, super oversold, and we want to, throw a little bit together, but it's just not, it's not going to produce any better and with more consistency than farming is. We should just put that into a farm for the most part. We do
leverage would have to be too high. We'd take too much risk, wouldn't we?
Yeah, there's too much risk to take on. We can't enjoy the benefits of going in the middle and playing both sides of that range. It's just the risk reward ratio is not there. So while we dabble a little bit and throw a few trades around when we're, like I said, when the election happened and, when Trump and Elon are battling, we may go short with a $10,000 position to double up real quick or whatever. We're not going to do it as a function of revenue. ICO investing is super risky. So it's like, that's just you just throwing money at it and seeing if it works. We've all seen really well credentialed coins that had amazing teams completely flop. And then we've seen, my cat took a poo in the garden coin and it just launched and went crazy. So it's just too much risk there. It's not what paca does. Oh, let's see. Anything else? Yeah, we're all over on different dexes. So COP's KuCoin, other DeFi platforms. We're on PancakeSwap, Uniswap. We're on Aerodrome. We use a lot of different dexes to try to find the right weights and everything. So we're all over the place. We like to have things spread out as well. The largest portion of our capital obviously is stuck on Cedus because it was the largest producing percentage wise. So why not have it there if it was working flawlessly since inception until the hack happened? And I do think it'll bounce back and we'll be right back in the same position that we were in. Let's see. Any other crazy things that need addressed? Yeah, this one was in there. So, and you might have actually asked this original question, but when can you start to restake expired stakes? The second that the DApp is available to click for you. So that's going to be on Friday. So Thursday it'll be live and you'll be accumulating and your clock will be running. And then Friday the DApp is going to go live and you'll be able to click all the buttons and do your restakes and withdrawals and compounds and add liquidity at 0.4% and all that kind of stuff. And again, we had to run the 0.37 because we already agreed with you guys that we would. We were going to run a 0.4 promo when Sui launched. So this is just, we were going to do it anyway. And it just makes sense to do it. Hopefully it'll inspire some new capital, and hopefully the price doesn't spike too much before then, because I would love for us to get, buy some of these lower rates, but we'll see. I have a feeling it's catch 22. Bitcoin's over 110 right now. Sui price is increasing. I have a feeling that we're going to be in really good shape price wise by Thursday, and we will miss that buying opportunity. But we're not going to take on capital until stuff's earning and whatever. That's just not our style. We've already explained that. That's why we didn't leave it open for deposits during that in between time, because other dApps have certainly pulled those little cash grabs and then made excuses on why they couldn't do X, Y, or Z, and that's just not our style. We're trying to make sure that you guys, the capital's safe, paca lasts a long time, investor confidence there. We get right back to normal after the pause. I said before, it was a really difficult choice. We did not want to do this, but there was no other decision but to come forward and face our problems head on, if you will. And just, even though the Cedus hack didn't have anything to do with us, it's just something we had to do. So that's how we ended up here. But I think in the end, we learned a lot about what we could do with the dApp and how our community would back us in case of emergency, if you will. And for the most part, 95% of our community has been stellar. So I think we're real lucky to have a bunch of people, a bunch of really quality people, because there's only a few people that have just tried to cause problems. And, and that's been super helpful, because obviously the support is helpful during this time. We're just trying to get it fixed as quickly as possible, but we can't just snap our fingers and make millions of dollars without the liquidity there to play with. So that's where we're at.
Trying to see if there's any more we've missed, but I don't think.
There's this one. Is it an idea to lock up daily payouts in days for extra rewards? And the answer is that button is on the site. It is called Compound. So you get to lock your days up. You get to lock your earned fees up back in for another 250 days, and there you get the extra rewards from that. So there's no plan to do like an additional thing on that, because we can't average much over what we're offering. So we're trying to offer a good rate that's really solid, that will excite people to be like, dang, paca's paying out really well, but not too much to where it's like it's not sustainable. So that's where we've got the balance between the highest basically being 0.4 and then the lowest being 0.33, and finding that range in there. It's enough to get people excited, but not too much to where we can't afford it. So the extra payouts is whatever. If we then bonused you extra and we got too much over that 0.4, that's not sustainable for us. We've said that a lot of times. Our average can't be above that. So what we offer you to do is Compound to earn those fees, and if you've come to the end of your stake, we offer a 0.37, which is a bonus off the 0.33 for you to lock that up. So those are really already in play, if you will. We just go about them a little different way. It's a little less salesy, but it helps us to have the money on the platform and not be pulling out of the positions all the time, and helps us grow. But we also really want to we want to preserve capital. We like you guys to be able to claim some too, and earn as you go. I don't think it makes sense we're not the platform that's just like keep every dollar in suicide compound forever. No, pay your bills, do your thing. We never ask people to just keep the money on there forever. Do we use leverage positions? So in farming, there's leverage positions. It's not really leverage. It's every time the degree to when you lower your block of liquidity to the closeness of your range is considered leverage on platforms. It's not really leverage. It's just you're leveraging your own capital by putting it all in one space. So rather than having it spread out through the full range, you're just mashing it down to a smaller one. That's the leverage you're getting. It's not really leverage. So there's really like no leverage positions in farming. It's a term that's used, and it's not how it works. Hopefully that makes
unless technically, again, leverage is a weird word, but there is a couple of dexes out there that technically offer leverage farming. For instance, extra finance. I did. I think it was me and Keith used it for a
Yeah,
while.
we
and
did some.
Although
Yeah.
it was okay, it wasn't really producing what we need. It's good if you just want to play around with that kind of thing, but for us and our averages, it wasn't anything that we really dug too deep in. And places like Cetus and Bluefin, like Scott said, they call it leverage, but it's just basically a full position from the very bottom to the very top, a full V2 open position. As soon as you bring that top and bottom range into the block that Scott explained a little bit earlier, it adds leverage to a full position, but it's not. It's just concentrated liquidity. It's a cool buzzword.
Yeah,
in the main.
there's no
Yeah.
leverage to me is leveraging to where there's a liquidation line. If it drops down below, your entire position's gone. So that's real leverage, right? If you're trading stocks or options or whatever, if you're using that type of leverage, it's of course risky depending on where you're at, and then they charge for the leverage and all that. So in terms of farming, like we farm, leverage to that degree, we're never getting liquidated. Like, if it drops down, if SUI drops down to, $3 even, all of a sudden our money is not gone. It's just, we're only providing liquidity in a shorter range. They call it leverage. It's not really true leverage. Yep. If you want to join, great. It's a very interesting AMA to join. But yeah, for sure. The DApp will be available. So jump in. There's plenty of YouTube videos that I've done on it. DApp will be totally available for use for you on Friday. So I would maybe just, if you're serious about it, join the community on Telegram, ask a few questions, go watch the YouTube videos, will help more, and then just be ready to roll on Friday when everything goes live. What else do we got? We still got over 100 people on here. Ask any questions you feel like we didn't cover. Hopefully that was pretty explanatory. There was a few questions that were just like big time what ifs, and I think I covered most of those. I wanted to address the real issues today and what we're doing to resolve them.
Yeah, Phantom, in terms of bear market, like we said earlier, we've touched on it a little bit. We wouldn't discuss any particular rate based on the words bear market, because it happens in different forms, and like we said, it's going to be a different bear market if one occurs in any way. So we're more concerned about where we are this week, and obviously if and when that time comes, we would probably do an AMA and discuss it with everyone. We're not going to hide our thoughts and feelings on the market, but as it stands right now, we're more concerned about getting back to where we want to be, i.e. paca open.
Yep. Let's see.
That was me knee. Sorry.
We don't know, man. This is the bear market rate. Probably 2.2 is probably high. It's probably high for a bear market. Bear market rate's tricky. So again, this is a future conversation that we got to have. Bear market rate's tricky because it's not what it can produce on a day, because the daily production is due to volume. So volume in a bear market could be fine. It's how much impermanent loss do you have to take, and how do you have to manage that on the way down? So if we see massive drawdowns on a daily basis, there's no way for you to make up for that impermanent loss. So you have to be able to move to cash. And then if you move fully to cash, you're not earning. So how long can you wait that out, and do the fees that you're earning on the days that you are within range and it's not dropping heavily outweigh the maybe 3-4 days you got to take off during the blood red deal? Does that make up for the 0.2 per day? If it does, then maybe that's your thing. So again, this is a big old math problem that we got to figure out later. So that's a question that will get answered when the time comes, but not today. This is a question that's been asked a few times. We'll keep this to ourselves. We try not to share the exact ranges and everything. And as much as I'd like to tell everybody, I will say that we're very close on some of the positions. We're almost in. So everything's looking good, but we share as much as we possibly can. But I also don't want to give everyone our exact positions, because that is just a great way for people to just try to copy us and try to do what we're doing. So we're super close on the lower end of our ranges, and then got a little ways to go before the higher ones. We block things out in like a stack. I don't know, some people call it a snuggle, whatever. There's a bunch of terms for it, but we have a way that we farm, and it's a tiered system. Why don't we get Paca back to normal, and then once it's rocking, we can discuss some sort of event. That'd be cool. We'd love that. We'd love to be in a position where we thought it'd be cool to get everyone in some sort of real world event and toast for a drink. You know what I mean? Let's see. Keith, that's for you, bud.
Yeah, that's a key question.
That's this could get deep. Right. What we drinking? That's what she said. Yeah. This is well, I like Jura. Jura's going to be toasted, but to be honest, I ain't going to be drinking on Paca relaunch because I've got 1,025 buttons to press on the minute we relaunch. So you lot are all going to have to drink for me, and I'll be drinking on Saturday. But yeah, just get a nice whiskey, and you can all drink for me and toast us relaunching, and I'll catch up after we've relaunched.
And I don't drink the stuff, so I can't answer.
Have an infinity lockup option where investors earn a higher fee, perhaps a share in Paca. So infinity lockups are tough. That's a great way to get a whole bunch of FUD, because that's what everyone else has done. Just give us your money forever, and we'll pay out until it doesn't. In theory, it could work, especially for us. But then there's also never a point where we get to leave the platform. Like if we want to retire in a few years, your investment is there forever. So then we take it. Like I don't know, it's tough. Like I could get it, but we could have like a longer term lockup, but eventually you'd want those funds back, or in the end, we just decide when we want to close down the platform, and then whatever's left over, we get to keep. So that makes that scenario a little bit difficult. A share of Paca, that's pretty difficult, dude. You'd have to share in the work and share in the blood, sweat, and tears that have happened to set it up and all that. And so that's a challenging one. Although we do appreciate the onboarding of capital and all that, it's pretty difficult to do all that. It's been a challenge. You have to share the losses too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You stole my point.
Yeah. Listen, it's a labor of love, so we've all enjoyed it, but good Lord, we've been through it the last, ways. Everything, crypto's just crazy, right? So you've got the election cycle, you've got all this stuff. We've certainly learned a lot and had plenty of challenges along the way. We've got, we've been intimately involved in hacks, both from our personal users, but then also the Cedus side from some of these dexes. I mean, we're going through it, but I feel like we're learning a ton. I've got this phrase that I keep driving into my son's head, and it's, you are what you repeatedly do. Right. And so being in the, we weren't concentrated liquidity pool farmers a couple years ago, but you sit there and you do it every single day, and you spend all your time doing it, and you get a passion for it, and you soak it up, and then next thing you know, you've got so many reps in it that all of a sudden you're the resident expert. So that's a good quote for anything in life, right? Like no matter what, like if you're not a runner right now, you go out and you go run today, you're not a runner yet, but you do it all week, next week, maybe 3-4 weeks from now, if you run every day, all of a sudden you're a runner, and then you get to be a proficient runner if you continue to do that over time. So in the end, this is what we've, built ourselves into. This is what we've created. So it's been going pretty well. And we appreciate all you guys just being a good community. I think we're super lucky. Like I said, the community's been awesome and super understanding of everything that happened. Obviously you can see without real world revenue, then the DApp doesn't run. So we got to actually make it to give it back to you guys. And so we're excited to relaunch, because pretty sure we'll be the only one ever to do that too. All right. The questions have slowed. We're almost 2 hours in. We had a couple hundred people on here at one point. I think we've done pretty well. So hopefully that answers most of the questions. We'll be in Telegram. The admins are phenomenal. Big shout out to our admins for helping us handle this process. But hopefully that answered just about everything. And new updates to the site, Sui going live, all Sui stuff. I mean, there's a bunch of positives that are coming out from this as well. So yeah, look forward to seeing you guys in the chats and all that. So I'll kill it there. You guys got anything you want to say before I close this out?
No, just reiterate, thanks to everyone for being patient with us and helping us along the way. Obviously, the admins have been legends as always. And it we have learned certain things, but now that's in the past. We'll take it as a learning experience. We've learned more about security and dexes and how they work, code-wise, which is good for us who don't know that kind of thing to learn a little bit. Obviously, I've noticed in the chat a lot of people who weren't so keen on Sui are pretty much up to date with what's happening on Sui and what the network's all about and its potential upside, which is good for us. And it's good for you to diversify your portfolios, which you should always do. So that's a pleasing thing to come out of it, that more people are actually aware of the Sui network and more aware of what can happen in crypto and how you respond to it, whether you're a project manager, DApp owner, developer, or just an investor. We never know what's around the corner, but it's how you respond to what happens. And I think everyone, not just us, I'm talking about everyone, down to the community, behaving themselves and not losing the plot. So thanks to everyone for doing that. We're very appreciative of it, to say the least.
Yeah, so yeah, just for me, just again, right, thanks to our admin team, because they've been holding it down this last 2 weeks while the three of us have been in chats. Also, thanks to these two degens here for keeping me sane for this last 2 weeks of doing it all, because it has been an absolute ride this last couple of weeks. Really, really important. Please don't answer any random DMs off people. The official update will be in the Telegram when we go live. No one will be telling you to go to some rando site to update it to get your stakes or anything. There'll be an update on Friday. At that point, you'll know what time it is. It'll push, it'll go live. You will need to reconnect your wallet, so don't panic about that, because we moved over to a new server. All the cookies from Wallet Connect and all that kind of stuff won't remember you, so it won't auto connect to paca. You'll get the click again, but that's completely normal. But again, just thank you very much for all being so patient. It has been a joy with this community for the last few weeks to not have to deal with FUD and crap from you guys, and anyone that has come in and FUD, you guys have just kind of like been on top of them and dealt with it for us, which has been great. And I look forward to pushing the live button and getting you lot back to earning some money on Friday. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you guys again. Thank you both for joining. DGens, we'll talk after. And thanks for the couple hundred people that joined the live stream. It's pretty awesome. So hopefully you guys are appreciative of everything we've done. We're super appreciative of all you guys in the community and the admin team. So thanks a ton and happy investing.